Hey everybody, I'm Kent Merrig. I'm a non-competitive trail runner and high school cross-country coach with a long history of running exclusively in Altra shoes. On the other hand, I bought the shoes I'll be talking about today with my own money, and Altra has no influence over the thoughts I'll be sharing in this first impressions video. The Lone Peak line is Altra's most well-known trail offering, and it's popular to say that not much changes from one iteration to the next. I agree with that, but there were a couple of changes in the Lone Peak 7 that I felt like were a big enough deal in a negative direction that I pretty much abandoned the Lone Peaks in favor of running all of my trail miles in 2023 in the Mont Blancs instead. The first and slightly less important thing was that after a few years of shaving weight, the Lone Peak 7s actually got heavier by 10 to 20 grams. And I can't help it. I just don't like the idea of new shoes being heavier than old shoes. The second problem was that the Lone Peak 7 went up in price by $10 without any advancements in technology to back up that price increase. With all the other alternative offerings out there, even offerings from Altra that fit my feet just the way I like, it just was impossible to believe that the Lone Peak 7 was a $150 shoe. And that's why I'm so happy to say that I knew I was going to love a couple things about the Lone Peak 8s before I even took them out of the box. Most importantly, the price dropped all the way back down to $140, which is much more in line with Altra's other offerings and with other trail shoes that you could consider a daily trainer. And at the same time, the extra weight of the 7s vanished as well. With the midsole, the outsole design, and most of the upper staying pretty much the same between the two versions. All I can say is, well done, Altra. These changes are something to be proud of. With Lone Peak shoes being something of a known quantity, durability is really the last remaining question. There's a new upper material in the 8s that's supposed to be more durable, but only time and miles will tell. I don't think I'll be returning to the Lone Peaks as a workhorse daily trainer, but I do think they've found their way back into my rotation. For anybody who's not already familiar with the Lone Peak line, I would describe the shoe as not really a standout in any one thing, but definitely a shoe that gets the job done in a variety of situations. They're not particularly light, and the midsole is definitely not the thickest and most comfortable, but it keeps your feet protected just enough to get you through some long miles. And the outsole rubber, it doesn't really grip onto things in a way that shocks you and makes you think it's amazing. On the other hand, there aren't really any trails around here in Juneau, some of them that are pretty gnarly that I don't feel like I can tackle in a pair of Lone Peaks. So they're serviceable in just about every condition. And in the past few versions, the upper has been durable enough to get me through a little over 400 miles, which is a fair value for the price, at least when they only cost $140 and not $10 more. My first run in the shoes was snowy and wonderful. I didn't have to use any grippers. The new lugs on the bottom of the shoes gave me just enough traction to get through the snow with no trouble. And there was a lot of stop and go on account of the filming, but I enjoyed pretty much every step through the whole run. And I expect that I'll have a pretty good time in these shoes for the next couple months. Hopefully at that point, I'll be able to give a positive long-term review if the uppers hold up and we don't wear things out too much. So check back for that when we've got a couple of 100 miles on the midsole. New shoes or old shoes, I hope you're finding joy and beauty on the trails out there, and I'll catch up with you next time.